Hello. And welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you're in Europe, let me know how the sound is. Let's see who is in the chat. We have Beth. Hi, Beth. We have Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Wonderful. So today we have our third pigment. Oh, hi, Ariana. Good to see you all here again. I really like our little group of people. And I'm gonna go ahead and put some paint on my canvas. So that I can get started a little bit while I talk, because I want to do something a little bit different today. I'm glad you like it too. Our group. I know that YouTube is very much about subscribers and views and etc., but I'm really honestly just here to paint a little bit and to hold myself accountable. So I like little groups of people. All right, so today we have green earth. And I have two green earths, green's earth. I have one from Rublev and I have one from Old Holland. The pigment number is PG23. And green earth is an earth pigment in a sense that it's an iron oxide. It contains manganese, just like all the other pigments that we used earlier. Burnt sienna, umber. I'm gonna need some white too. But green earth is a little bit special because it is probably one of the weakest colors out there. And by weak, I mean tinting strength. In terms of tinting strength, I'm gonna go ahead and explain to you the idea of tinting strength in a little bit, but first I'm gonna wax some paint on here. And tint my canvas a little bit. I thought about doing this before I got started. That would have been easier. But I thought this could also be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about the concept of tinting strength. Let's get this one. Hi, Linda. Good to have you here. Tinting strength is not always related to chroma, but the two do go hand in hand a little bit. So what tinting strength basically means, if you put equal parts of this paint into, say, white, you get result X. And if you put a lower tinting strength, the same amount, so I'm talking like milliliters or grams or whatever metric system you want to use, you put that lower tinting strength color into white, it will not only look desaturated, more desaturated, but also lighter, in a sense that it is not able to maintain its value from the tube. So this is a dark valued paint. It will not be able to maintain that value as well. So there are a lot of terms out there that describe tinting strength. You know, we say weak or strong. We say vibrant sometimes. And we often, and I do find that pretty good description, something can be overpowering or not. So this is a color, like I said before, with an incredibly low tinting strength. I'm just going to go ahead and grab my reference photo that for some reason I always forget. There we go. And next to that, it's also quite a transparent color. So I have trouble all the time getting a little bit of coverage with this paint. I have to say that I don't usually use it as a paint to cover things with, or a paint to paint in the shadows with, or anything like that. What I use it for a lot is mixing. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that for the next hour or so. And then you might get a bit of an understanding why I like this color so much. One of the things you can do in underpaintings, here's my brush, you can wrap a cloth around the back of it, and in underpaintings you can sort of try and wipe this out a little bit. We might need some more. Sorry about that. That is my son leaving. I don't know why I keep choosing these angles that I struggle with. I'm also a bit tired of this photo series that I did for Dylan and Shannon. So maybe we need new photos. So you can see that as I'm putting this down, it is not easy to get any kind of coverage. But it is what it is, and I am determined to finish all these live streams with one single pigment and white. Green Earth is apparently one of the oldest pigments that we still use today. That we know of. Green Earth has been found in the Italian city of Pompeii that was covered in debris from the volcano, the Vesuvius. And they also found some of these pigments, some of Green Earth at least, in a city called Jura Europa. This is an ancient city located in what we now call Syria. So it's a very old color. Now let me quickly show you the difference here between the one and the other. This is the Old Holland. I can see that I'm a little bit far up in the screen. Let's try and push that down a little bit. Okay, so this is the Old Holland. And this is the Rublev. So this is clearly a very warm, a very almost olive green color. And the Old Holland is remarkably cool. Cool as in cold, right? Which I think is very cool. I'm not sure if the one is synthetic and the other not. It says natural on the tube. But these pigments, just like burnt sienna and umbers, they come in so many different varieties depending on the composition of minerals in the earth. Linda says, hold on, oh, wait, let me check the chat. Beth says I went to Pompeii last century. I think I barely made it this century. I think it was a long time ago, but I went there too. It was beautiful. Those are, so yes, they're very different. Linda, I missed the very beginning. The name of the color is Green Earth. Green Earth or green iron oxide, and the pigment number is PG23. You guys are much faster than I am in the chat. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, let's let's get a little bit shape in here before I get all distracted. So green is an interesting color, and one of the colors that I added to my palette probably about 2 years ago. It's one of those colors where or at least I wanted to learn color theory. So I was adamant that I should, paint everything with red, blue, and yellow. So green being a secondary color, that is something that you can mix. Now, why do you need green on your palette? Because green is the complementary color. So the color that's opposite of red on the color wheel. So you have a wheel and you have red, and then right across it, 180 degrees, is green. So a complementary color, basically, you guys probably know this already. I'm just gonna say it for if anyone doesn't. A complementary color does two things. If you mix it with the primary color, you go to gray. And when you place it next to each other, or when you make a green square and you put a red dot in the middle, it makes the red look redder. Yeah? So green is a very convenient color to have on a portrait palette, because there is, in general, quite a bit of red in portraits, and there is quite a bit of yellow in portraits. So in order to neutralize things being too things being too red, you can add green. In, I think, medieval times, 12th, 13th century maybe. I'm not great with centuries. But I think it was medieval times, starting in medieval times, especially in Italy. They started using this green earth, as an underpainting color. So they would do underpaintings in green and in green and white. Yeah, and then they would glaze on top of that with reds. That would be partially neutralized by the green. And also they felt like it contributed to a sense of realism. We all have colder areas in our face where there is less blood flow. So here in the jawline, for instance. So they try to mimic that in that way, and they got very good results. Unfortunately, they glazed at the time with warm pigment that we now call lakes. We call them lake pigments, and it's a type of pigment that was, beautifully vibrant, beautiful colors. There are people who still work with lake pigments in watercolor because they feel like nothing compares, which makes it temporary because they are not light fast at all. And now if you see some of these older paintings that have been glazed with lake pigments, they look green, because green earth is 100% light fast, just like any other earth pigment we've used so far in the live streams. They're not going anywhere. So what ended up, you ended up having the green underpainting, making everybody look very, very sick. And I think it even took conservatories, you know, people who make sure these paintings get restored and everything. It took them some time to realize that is what was going on. But today we have perfectly light fast alternatives for any lake pigment. Let me check the chat. I love all the little tips. Thank you. Kelly says, I'm still trying to ingrain all of this color theory info. Please keep sharing. Great. Yeah, it's a lot. Like, don't feel bad. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just, you know, it'll stick eventually. It just takes a long time. Like Madder Lake, yeah, like Madder Lake. Madder Lake is gone within, I don't know how long. I think if you put it in the sun, it'll actually be gone within a year. So Madder Lake is also one of those pigments used in watercolor a lot, and also the reason why some of these watercolor paintings in museums only get shown for like a few weeks a year, and then they get put back into dark storage again so they don't fade. Fugitive, yes. Yeah, so lake pigments is it's funny to read about that. From what I understand, but I did not read enough about this, but from what I understand, Johannes Vermeer, the man who painted the girl with the pearl earring, had found a way to, I think, at least stabilize one of those pigments. It may have been a lake pigment. I want to look that up. It was either it was stable in a glaze or stable in a mix with titanium white. I can't recall. Yes, Linda. Yes, you can also do the you know, like fool your family. I would totally do like a green weird painting and then paint on top of that with lake pigments that then fade in like 20 years. And then suddenly you walk in and you see the painting all weird. That would be, I would love that. See, this is harnessing the power of failures in light fastness. Green Earth will stick around. Well, Beth has been to Pompeii, but if you've ever been to Pompeii, I went there in May. It's not even like high summer in May, and the sun was so intense. I wore sunglasses, I still had a headache, but those green pigments were sitting there on the wall, undisturbed. So if anything proves their light fastness, is that it's that. So in terms of mixing, I like this this green, especially next to something like a burnt sienna. Like I said, if you mix it with a quinacridone, you're gonna need half a tube of green to get it to gray or some brown. And there are more efficient ways and cheaper ways to do that. So what I would recommend if you want to use this green in portraits is really either mix it with another low tinting pigment, like an earth pigment, or I sometimes use it to mix into wet paint. If I put down a layer and it's just a little bit too red, you take a little bit of green, you mix it in, tones it down. Just like other iron oxides, it dries quickly. So you can safely use this for underpaintings, stuff that needs to dry fast. Yeah, I would also love to go back to Pompeii. It's huge, right? I think I saw half of it. And then I was exhausted. So I took the train back. It's kind of funny to experiment a little bit with that cold shade here and the warmer shade by Rublev, which is a beautiful pigment, by the way. Is Pompeii high altitude? That's a good question. Let me see. I don't think it was very I don't think it's not extremely high altitude. The Vesuvius is high, but Pompeii was at the bottom of the Vesuvius. They were like, let's build a city here, underneath this giant rumbling mountain with a big hole in it and smoke coming from it. But I do understand your point with altitude, yeah. It's the low air pressure, I think. Is it low? Yes. So the higher you go, the lower the air pressure. West says Pompeii and Herculaneum would be low. Yeah, I think it would be low altitude. But yes, if you ever do go, get one of those umbrellas, because everything, or at least, yeah, no, I went to a lot of parts of it, and most of it is, you know, out in the open. There's no shade whatsoever. There are very few high objects to cast any shade, so the sun is unforgiving. Kelly says, I don't have any green earth, so I would need to order. Always a complicated question to answer. Do you have a brand recommendation for the portrait we're going to be doing together? I can only recommend one of these two. These are the only two I own. I'm not planning on buying more tubes of green in the near future. I have to say that if I had to choose, I like the Old Holland a little bit better because it gives me a little bit of coolness. And in a very warm palette with burnt sienna and burnt umber and raw umber, which also can have a green undertone that leans more towards this, the olive side. Something like this, and honestly, I'm quite surprised at its color. It's really nice. It reminds me a little bit of emerald green, which can either be a synthetic, affordable, or it can be toxic and very expensive. So, if you had to choose between these two, I would go for the Old Holland. It gives you a little bit more color variety. Linda says, I miss the green of England. Yes, England is definitely green. But not the cold and not the rain. I have to say though, English people have nothing on us here when it comes to rain. I went to England, it felt dry, and people were like, oh, it's so rainy, it's so wet, and I'm like, I have no idea what you mean. It's been dry for 16 hours. Why are you complaining? I went to Scotland. People in Scotland were like, it's a rainy summer, it's a rainy summer. I'm like, don't know what you mean. come to Holland. It's green-gray here. You do need to visit Holland. We also apparently have like 23 words for rain, for different kinds of rain. Let's see, I do feel more attuned to the outer tube look of the Rublev. Yeah, I get that, because, you know, that color, whenever I put it on, is like a warm shower, right? It's nice. It's really nice. And it's the first color that I bought, the first green that I bought. So I do want to emphasize that. And I'm also somebody who buys colors, or at least I tell myself I buy them, you know, with logic and rational thinking, but I'm also able to sort of rationalize my purely emotional decisions, especially when it comes to buying stuff. So if the Rublev feels good, buy the Rublev. I mean, look how this stains. I could just stain a canvas with Rublev Green Earth and be completely content looking at that. I should get stocks. They should sponsor me, and then I would do like love letters to their pigments. Just kidding. And I think you're in the United States, right, Kelly? So it's a US brand. I know Old Holland can be a little bit expensive in the US. Yes, Rublev is a natural pigment. I think they actually get it from Italy, so the original place. I'm not sure. The stuff is also called Verona green, from the Italian region of Verona. Linda says, is this like a patina look? Yeah, kind of. This is quite warm. Like, the Old Holland has more of a copper, green copper look, which also is very, very transparent. I mean, it really is. See? It just disappears, basically, because it's very dark from the tube. I love your tulips and your Van Gogh museum. Yes, Vincent is great. Let's see what we want to do here. I like the Van Gogh museum. Right now they have a show going on between the Van Gogh museum and the museum almost right across it, I think. They're showing Kiefer. Anselm, I think it is. Kiefer. the German artist. And I'm gonna go and see it. It's gonna be great. Anselm, yeah. I'm just not very good in German. I've been Americanized and no one here pronounces Van Gogh. No, you say Van Gogh. Yeah, Ariana, I think he was. And unfortunately, I can't remember exactly if it was in Wassenaar, but I do know that there was a show of him recently here and I missed it. So I am not going to miss this one. Yeah, I love how Americans pronounce Van Gogh, but also you say Rembrandt. And there was a guy once who called me on Zoom and we were talking about some of his paintings and he needed some help. And he was constantly referring to a style of a certain painter. And I couldn't for the life of me remember who this painter was. And I felt a little bit stupid because he was looking for a little bit of mentorship, etc., etc. So I kind of wanted to sound smart. And I was like, who is he talking about? And all of a sudden it clicked and it was Rembrandt. And so I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I think this is about the maximum amount of coverage I'm gonna get from this cute pigment. How is it different? Like the exhibition, the Kiefer exhibition. So they're doing two parts. So you buy one ticket. It's in Amsterdam. You buy one ticket, and then you start. I think you start at the Van Gogh Museum, and then you do a part there, and then you go to the Stedelijk Museum, where they have the rest of the exhibition. So it's kind of a collaboration, and you get one ticket, and they have this whole thing going on, including one of his very big, one of the huge installations that he did in the room. So I'm not sure what the other exhibition had, stuff like that, but you can look it up. It's on the website. They're doing a lot of promo right now for it, because I'm pretty sure it was expensive. Some say Van Gogh. Yeah, they do. Poor Vincent. How do you say? Okay, so it's Rembrandt. 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 There you go. You can just, in the replay, put that on a loop. I do know that for Americans, some of these harder R and Brand can be very, very difficult to pronounce. I have to say that the rolling R, for me in Dutch, when it's positioned in a certain way in a word, I can't do that either. So I feel you. It's not always easy. The R is pronounced like an L. No. Rembrandt. 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 Yeah, it's all rolling R's. So So I wish you good luck with that. I cannot roll the R. No, you don't have to. It's fine. For some reason, I heard an L. Brexit. Yeah, you know what? I think that is also one of the, well, explanations for why the guy I was talking to, it just didn't click in my head, because some of these sounds, they get like wrongly associated in your brain, because I'm not, I'm pretty used to people saying Rembrandt, right? Because if you watch any YouTube videos or whatever, English speaking people will say Rembrandt. It just didn't click at the time. I'm going to be honest in saying that I actually never did an underpainting in green. So this is the first time I am working monochrome with this pigment, and it is shockingly transparent. It is not sticking at all. Which for an underpainting, by the way, is a great quality, because the whole point of an underpainting is that you shift all your values 2 steps up, 2, 3. If you make your, sorry, if you make your darks too dark in the underpainting, oh God, I'm sorry. If you make your darks too dark in the underpainting and you glaze over it, glazing is an additive technique, meaning you add color, but you also add value, right? Because the value, there's no white in a glaze. So if your darks in your underpainting are too dark, you're just gonna end up with black. So usually what you do in the underpainting is either you work off a high key reference, a reference photo that has been overexposed, or you kind of in your brain say, okay, this is value number 5 and now it's value number 3, right? So you end up with an underpainting that is a low contrast, overexposed version of what you're looking for in the end. And for that, Green Earth is perfect because it really doesn't have a lot to say when you mix it with white. It just lightens up. That's it. So I think it would be very easy to get a nice light underpainting out of this. Oop. Yeah, glazing like Dream Buddy. I like how we decide on titles and names. Just like that. Oh, that doesn't look good. It does not want to stick. Probably shouldn't overwork it this much. All right, I think this painting wants to be left alone. I'll leave it alone. Where are we at? Oh, 52 minutes. It helps me remember things, yeah. It helps me see the humor in stuff like that. So very often I feel like some of the stuff that I paint is so weird. And then people are like, oh yeah, Dream Buddy. I'm like, that's very cool. I like it. Let's, yeah, maybe we can grab him because we have like 7 minutes. So this is, of course, how are we doing? This is glazing, basically. I think everybody knows it, but one of the things that I like to see is people actually do it, because glazing can feel very overpowering, right? Because you're used to this very low chromatic painting that you're working with, and your brain adapts to that, and suddenly you put this, in this case, a quinacridone alizarin crimson on top of it, and you go like, oh, that is way too saturated, because the contrast between the low chroma and the high chroma is just glaringly obvious, right? And then you leave it for a while, and you can leave it for say 30 minutes, whatever, just walk out of the room, you come back and you think, okay, that's actually fine, that's actually good. So yeah, give it a try. It's fun. I try not to take it too seriously anymore. Yeah, I have a reel, I think, on Instagram where I did the right hand, and I already did this one. And again, you know, with glazing, this is also something I used to think that it was the final layer, but it doesn't have to be. You know, you can let that dry. Are my fingers clean? It's super dry. And if it's too much for you, then you can go back in and you know, take it down, restore it, paint back over it with an opaque paint, and then repeat the whole process again. So yeah, it's on Instagram and on Facebook. All right, I hope you had fun, and I'm gonna try and do a portrait next week. All right, with 3 pigments and some white. So I'll put all the info on my website and on social media, the stuff I'll be using. And maybe we can do a little bit longer, or maybe we'll do it in 2 sessions. I'm not sure. I'm not that fast. We'll see, right? Linda says, can you tell me about your tech setup? Do you use OBS? Yeah, no, actually. I sometimes use OBS when I do Zoom and stuff like that. But I have a video switcher from ATEM where I can plug in my HDMI cables, and I have some cameras. Can you see it here? My camera. So DSLR cameras, and the video switcher actually has a setup that allows you to stream directly to YouTube. So, but you can also do it through OBS if you hang it on your computer. And a little microphone. So yeah, I'm not too exciting with my live streams, so OBS is not really necessary, but it's a great piece of software. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here. Hang in there while we are still in some state of peace. Join me again next week. We're gonna paint a portrait with actual color variety in it, and I will also be trying to explain some of that while painting. And I wish you a good night, good day, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.